Liz is the person who keeps the prisoners in line here at PelotonLabs. And I think last time we wanted to get her up, but we already had some other people, but I insisted that she come up and kind of tell her story this time. So please give Liz a nice welcome, and she's going to give her speech.
So I started PelotonLabs 4 years ago with my then business partner, Peter Bass, who's around here somewhere. There he is. And when we started, there's this vision. There's two sides of co-working. There's the real estate side, which is you get a building, you fill it up with people, you're done. And then there's this co-working Shangri-La, which is it's the place that you show up and everybody knows your name. It's the perfectly quiet place where you can always focus. When you need something, when you don't understand something about your computer, the right person always materializes to help you fix it. When you need a contact because business is slow, the right person materializes. All of the perfect relationships are there. There's always something going on, but it's still quiet enough that you can always get your work done. So this is what people who come in all the time have in the back of their head. I think it's like some sort of archetype in the human brain because we all have this idea of this perfect workspace. So when we started this, it was great because people were coming in and it was great. Peter and I were both working part-time. I think when I started, I was only 5 or 10 hours a week. And then time passed and we realized, oh, this isn't going to happen on its own. This doesn't actually work because most people need to get their work done and then they're quiet and they're not talking to other people and then there's not buzz and then so forth and so on. And so I started to take on more and more responsibility. I took on full ownership a year ago. And what I wanted to talk about was the times when I realized, uh-oh, I'm taking on full responsibility of this. And sometimes I come in here and it's so quiet that I don't want to be here. Sure, I could sit in the corner and do my work, but that's not what this is about. I'm not in this business for real estate. I'm here to connect people. I'm here to create a place where people can grow and where things are happening, where we get inspired, connected, and where we move. So that's why I'm doing this. So I started coming in and I started having this panic because I was like, well, wait a minute. If it's so quiet that I can't even make a phone conversation or talk to someone or have coffee without feeling like I'm making too much noise, then we've got a problem here, right? And I didn't know how to fix it because if I had a coffee date with someone, it felt like the conversation was too exposed. The sound was going everywhere. And then when I would freak out, I didn't have a place to go. I live a block away, so when I would start noticing, when am I going home? I'd be like, okay, if I'm feeling emotionally upset, I'm going home. If I'm feeling hungry and I want a warm meal, if I'm going home. If I'm feeling exhausted and want to lie down, I'm going home. And if it's too quiet, I'm going home. So I knew that this wasn't going to work. I also had a couple other panic points where I realized, oh my gosh, I'm taking on this business debt. I'm putting in all of this time of my life. What happens if it totally bombs? You know, what happens if I have to, close down the space, pay for rent without people, take on the debt, all of this stuff? I was really having a hard time. And so I want to talk about how I got through that process. There are a couple things that happened for me. One is we started doing these peer groups where people were meeting once a week for several weeks to talk about what challenges they were working on and what goals and getting help. And one of the people that was in the peer group was a coach and was really helpful to me. And so one day I was freaking out and I said, okay, instead of going home, I'm going to go find this person and say, hey, will you work on the whiteboard with me a little bit? And I went upstairs and she wasn't there. But I was determined. I was like, I'm just going to show up every day and make this space work for me so that it will work for everyone else. So somebody else was upstairs. And I went up to that person and I said, hey, do you think you could help me a little bit on the whiteboard? Because I've got 1,000 things in my head and it's overwhelming and I want to go home. And he said, sure, I'd be happy to. And we got up and we wrote down what turned out to be about 17 things, not 1,000. And then I had this huge moment where I was like, oh my God, almost anybody could help me. Like, and he was So, I didn't need a professional, So I started doing this and I started realizing, oh, okay, I I started showing up, and when I got hungry, I was like, okay, what do I have at home that I don't have here? I have food. I have a great cooktop, so I bought a cooktop. I made a way to have food here. We started doing snack time every day at 3 o'clock so that people had a time to connect with each other, no matter how busy they were. We started doing coaching hours, where people who had a skill to give could say, yeah, I'm available for an hour every Thursday. You can come ask me accounting questions. You can come ask me legal questions. Just people give it away. You know, because we realize other people's problems are kind of fun, actually. You know, more fun than ours anyway, right? We created a phone room that was quiet and had a big beanbag on it, so you could go in and completely shut the door and just be by yourself. We created more phone rooms. We installed a white noise system that actually we should probably turn off right now because it's called scrambling my voice, but it keeps voices from traveling. Instead of traveling all through the space, it goes about 6 feet and stops, which is amazing. We created a quiet zone upstairs so that people always have a way to focus. People always have people to talk to. We have an ambassador program so that people always have someone to talk to, and we can keep the doors unlocked and people can talk. The other thing that I did that really took me some figuring out, but around the financial panic piece, was I looked at it and said, okay, if everything goes wrong, what's the worst I'm facing here? And when I looked at it, I was like, okay, it's about 2 years of my time and maybe $30,000. And then I looked at what business school costs. And I realized, oh, okay, I'm doing pretty good. You know, after 2 years, I'll actually have a business, which is more than most people in business school can say, right? And I'll pay a lot less money for it. And it's part of that is redefining the success in the daily actions, because part of what I realized was, you know, if I spent 3 or 4 years of my life on this and I've made personal connections with, I'd probably meet 5 to 10 new people a week. So you do the math. Plus, I'm interacting with, we currently have 85 members. I expect that to probably go up to 130, maybe 160. It's, you know, these are incredible relationships and connections that I'm making. And those don't go away, no matter what happens. Now, I'm happy to say today that, you know, we're far past break even. We're doing fine financially, and there is a buzz here every day, and people get what they want, and we have a great reputation, and it's great to, you know, be able to do events like this. But when I'm summing up what I'm learning so far is the showing up even when it's uncomfortable, you know, showing up and being myself, even when it wasn't really happening the way I wanted it to. And then, see, white noise system just went down. Now you can hear me better, right? Yeah. And then the second thing is like figuring out survival. You know, what's the worst case scenario? And making sure that I felt like, okay, I don't need to be scared, because if the worst thing happens, which it's not, I'm still okay. And then the last thing was, what was the last thing?
Connection.
It's gone. Making a connection, living every day so that what I'm building every day is of value to me and the world I want to create, no matter what happens. Thanks.